Okay, welcome to APUSH Chapter 8, Lecture Part 3. This will finish up this chapter. Basically, we're going to focus on Protestant Christianity as a social force here in this last part. The Republican religious order had America rejecting basically a state-supported religion, meaning that you're not going to be taxed to fund the Anglican Church, which is kind of how it was in some areas starting on. And a lot of this came as a compromise to the Baptists, who were a growing power in the Revolutionary War time period. Anglicans and other people said, okay, if you'll support the cause, we'll make sure that we basically have a separation of church and state kind of thing, that there will be no funded churches. There will be, and there won't, still to this day, there are no churches that are directly funded by, Arkansas or by the United States as a whole. Now, they were basically acting off of three fundamental principles. There was enlightened principles, there was the wartime needs, which we talked about with the compromise with the Baptists, and this Baptist ideology that equality, and even the Baptists would say, we don't want our church being supported by the state. Some people saw this as if the state was paying for your church, then they had leverage over you, which is understandable. So they said, and it's really where the idea of passing around the collection plate, where the people of the church actually funded their own church through the things there. The Anglicans accepted the Baptist free exercise of religion, so they'd help with the independence cause. We talked about that. And this is a time period in the early 1800s, very early, first couple of decades of the Second Great Awakening, which is a little bit different than the First Great Awakening, which we'll talk about, but it really helps America become a genuine Christian society. Really, your founding fathers, there's only a little bit of Christianity in there. We have pockets of Christianity in the United States, pockets of Christian dissidents that had come over from Europe, but in the early 1800s, with the Second Great Awakening, you will see a lot more people going to church now. You will see a lot less children out of wedlock. You'll see a lot better marriages and stuff in the early 1800s. You have Evangelical, Methodist, and Baptist were by far the two fastest growing churches. Congregationalists and other churches, Quakers, they're still growing naturally, but the Baptists and the Methodists are like the rock stars in this time period of the Second Great Awakening. Lots and lots of people are becoming Baptists, including slaves, including women. Same thing with Methodists. Evangelicalism was initially disruptive in the South because it's preaching a message of kind of equality, and they're really speaking out against slavery, and masters won't have any of that, and so they start leaving the churches. So, and really there was a lot of stories of intimidation and bullying. Evangelical preachers would be beat up sometimes by these white men who didn't like their message. And so to keep white men in the church, the evangelicals actually kind of adjusted their message a little bit, and it really put the men back at the head of the household. There wasn't that equality with women, and it put slaves the slave's role was to be a good slave so that they could enjoy the next life. So that's really how they adopted and to change in the South. Blacks themselves accepting Christianity now. Most of the slaves up to this time period were either Muslim or they worshiped the same gods that they did in Africa. But many now are converting to Christianity, but their Christianity is a little bit different. Typically, Moses plays a much larger role in black Christianity than he does in other Christianity, because Moses was the one who led his people out of slavery, and so the slaves could wrap their mind around that. So a few differences there. Christianity became a warmer, more accepting religion in this time period. The old Calvinist believes the predestination, that's gone. This is do right, be right, and God will treat you right in the afterworld. So religion itself is become something much more attractive to people. There were a few very important differences between the First and Second Great Awakening that you need to make sure you know. The First Great Awakening split churches. Remember, old lights, new lights. Conservatives versus these radical, liberal, new light church members with all their dramatic preaching and stuff. But the Second Great Awakening fostered cooperations. Baptists, Methodists, Evangelicals, all these are getting together on the same page to get people into Christianity. Women, because they were pushed out of other offices and other places, women really took control of religious and charities because, that was what was available to them, so they took it and they owned it. You also see a lot more mixed-sex congregations, whereas before the men would have a congregation with just men, and women would have it, a preacher would preach to just women, and they felt like, if they had mixed sex, it would promote promiscuity. What they saw was, after they went to the mixed sex with that congregations, is that it was a lot more successful. Conversions were more successful, and the number of children born after 8 months after the parents were married for 8 months went down. So what you saw was a lot more people waiting till they were married to actually have sex. So that's the opposite effect of what people feared in the beginning. So religious activism also led to increased female education, which really from this time period into modern day, females have educated, they've wrapped education around them, and they've gained power through their education as something that's continuing on. Okay, that's it for this chapter.